This holiday season, our cover is a chocolate and citrus cassata. It is a stunning, show-stopping centerpiece cake that you can pull off. So the first step in making this cake is preparing our pans. So I have traced an 8-inch circle on this sheet of parchment, and now I'm gonna use that line as a guide to fold the circle in half. And now I'm gonna continue folding that in half until we only see about 1 inch of the line. Now we have a perfect circle. Spray the pan, make sure you get the sides really well. Go ahead and set that perfect circle in the bottom. This is a chocolate and citrus cassata, so the base cake layers are really chocolatey in the form of cocoa powder. I like to use a spatula. This is a good opportunity to not only lighten your ingredients, but to combine them. So stirring them gently, and then once they're sort of combined, I like to go ahead and tap. Okay, so to these sifted ingredients, I'm gonna add just a little bit of salt. To this stand mixer, I'm going to add brown sugar. To that, I'm going to add a whole stick of butter. It's the holidays. Mayonnaise is awesome in cakes. It keeps them really, really moist. All right, medium speed for 3 minutes. All right, this mixture is looking light and fluffy. Okay, now we're adding our eggs. And now it's time to start alternating our dry ingredients and our buttermilk. Okay, so when I'm adding dry ingredients, especially when there's cocoa powder involved, I like to turn the machine off as I add the dry ingredients. I love this recipe. It's inspired by the 2 badass women chefs at Gianna in New Orleans, Rebecca Wilcombe and Maggie Scales. Okay, we now have silky, delicious looking cake batter. I always pour cake batter right into the middle of the pan and then push from the inside to the edge. Give these cakes a little tap to make sure there's no big air bubbles. These cakes are gonna bake for about 16 to 20 minutes at 350 degrees, just until a wooden pick comes out clean. So our chocolate citrus cassata has a ricotta orange filling. The ricotta becomes almost silky, and that is because we are gonna drain it overnight. So this is a double layer of cheesecloth that I'm using. Now we're not just gonna drain this ricotta, we're gonna weight it. We are going to refrigerate this overnight to let all the moisture out. Here I have some ricotta that has been draining since yesterday. You can see how much liquid the cheese released. It has really compacted. So to that, we are going to add 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar. Whenever I'm zesting an orange or a lemon, I actually like to use the microplane as almost like a razor over the surface. It gathers up and you can see how much you have. And now we're gonna give this a really good stir, make sure everything's evenly incorporated. It smells like Italian Christmas to me. So I'm stirring it really vigorously to make sure all those vanilla bean seeds are distributed evenly. Next step of making our chocolate and citrus cassata is making the delicious chocolate frosting. Now we're gonna melt these together until they're nice and smooth, stirring occasionally every couple of minutes just to make sure everything is heating evenly. Look at how glossy and silky this is. Okay, so our chocolate and our butter are completely melted. I'm gonna remove this from the double boiler, stirring it every couple of minutes just until it's room temperature. So I'm gonna get started on the whipped portion of our frosting. Buttermilk is gonna add both the liquid we need to dissolve the sugar and a little bit of tanginess. It's gonna add a really wonderful, almost mouth-watering quality to this frosting. And just get it started really low. We don't wanna produce a big cloud of powdered sugar. Okay, so our powdered sugar, buttermilk, and vanilla are now smooth and creamy. We're gonna start drizzling the chocolate in with the machine running. It's more or less mixed, and I'm gonna do the rest by hand. So stir in any little streaks that haven't incorporated. I'm gonna let this cool. I'm gonna stir it occasionally for the next couple of hours until it's completely cool. Next up, we're gonna make our pistachio praline. We combined our sugar and our water in the saucepan, and I'm just gonna stir it gently for the first couple of minutes until the sugar is dissolved. The sugar has dissolved, so I'm going to stop stirring and just let the sugar and water do its thing. I'm gonna attach a candy thermometer to the side of the pan, and this is going to let me know when we're getting close to 350 degrees. And we're gonna sprinkle our pistachios right on this parchment-lined baking sheet. If you have countertops that are heat sensitive, put a towel underneath this sheet pan. When the hot caramel hits the pistachios, that heat is gonna transfer to your countertop. Now, I'm gonna set this aside to let it cool, and when it's time to decorate the cake, we'll break it up into small bite-sized pieces. Can you believe it? It's time to assemble the cake. Now, we've got a cake board, and this is an 8-inch cake board. Because eventually we're going to pour a glaze over the cake, I'm gonna go ahead and trim off just a little bit around the edge. We want it to be just a little bit smaller than our 8-inch cake layers. So now we're gonna add half of our ricotta filling. So I'm spreading this to ensure that the ricotta is even, so our cake sits nice and flat. Spoon our remaining ricotta and at this point, just look and make sure that the sides are even. And now we're gonna add a crumb layer of the frosting. And that means we're just going to take a small amount of our frosting and run it around the outside of the cake, ensuring that all of the crumbs are stuck to the sides and they don't end up in our final swoopy frosting. At this point, the cake could be chilled up to overnight, so it stays nice and cold and that ricotta stays nice and upright when we slice it. Now, it is time to make our dark chocolate glaze. We're gonna bring this to a simmer over medium-low heat. I'm gonna place 8 ounces of bittersweet chocolate into a heat-proof measuring cup. And to our chocolate, we're gonna just add a tablespoon of butter. Okay, our cream is just at a light simmer, and now that it's steaming and I've seen a few bubbles, it's time to pour it over the chocolate. Now, I'm gonna let this mixture sit for just about 2 minutes. That's gonna allow the chocolate to heat up gently before we start stirring, and then we're gonna stir it until it's very, very smooth. So we're looking for the chocolate to be between 100 and 105 degrees, and that's because when we pour it over our frosted cake, we don't want to melt that frosting. Okay, here's our chilled frosted cake. Want to make sure the frosting on the outside is nice and hard before we pour the warm glaze over. Now this glaze is right at 100 degrees. It's still liquid and pourable, but it's not so hot that it's going to melt the frosting off of the cake. This is why I wanted to do a video of this recipe, for this moment. As soon as I see that the chocolate is set and has stopped moving, I'm gonna run a knife around the edge just to make sure it's loosened from the rack. All right, now I'm gonna pop this glazed chocolate cake into the fridge for a couple more hours. At this point, we could leave it overnight. Okay, it's time to decorate this beautiful chocolate and citrus cassata. I love chocolate cake with champagne because it's just really decadent, and what is more celebratory? Now is the moment of truth. I'm gonna use this big spatula. You wanna keep the cake chilled and ice cold. It can be on the cake stand just like this until right before you serve it. So I have here some gorgeous navel oranges, some blood oranges that have been sliced into rounds. I pat them dry or just blot them dry on a paper towel. And again, this is just a couple of minutes before you're gonna serve the cake. Now on to our pistachio praline. This has been cooling, and now the candy is able to be snapped into small bite-sized pieces. Wow, look at this. It is, truly, this is a cake that is easy enough to make any time of year. It's especially special during the holidays. This is the best bite right here. Frosting, glaze, and ricotta. Wow, this is so good. That rich chocolate. The cake is definitely chocolatey, but it's light and moist. Complemented by that gorgeous ricotta. This is a keeper recipe.